Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tamara Ecker, Managing Director of British American Business. Thank you for joining us today as we get into the festive season. Frankly, we figured travel would be on many of your minds, and so bringing in the CEO of one of the largest hotel companies around this time, we thought was relevant. For those of you not familiar with BAB, we are the leading transatlantic business association supporting companies with operations in both the US and the UK markets. We run regular programs on themes impacting our member companies with a suite of well over 100 events per year. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome you to a very special session within our Power of Purpose series, which is brought to you in partnership with Brand Pie. We know that purpose in business is a cross-cutting theme, and today we are lucky to have with us the CEO of a company that puts purpose in the front seat. Today, we'll hear how IHG's purpose of true hospitality for good not only shapes culture, but acts as a strategic business tool to drive performance. Our Power of Purpose series is made possible thanks to the partnership and support of BAB member Brand Pie. And to moderate today's session, it's my pleasure to introduce Brand Pie's US CEO, Mary Lee Sachs. Mary Lee is really just an incredible force within the international marketing communications arena and has worked with some of the largest CPG and FS companies across her 30-plus year career. In her spare time, she also curates the Conference Board's Council for CMOs and writes for the Forbes CMO Network. So Mary Lee, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Tamara, and welcome everybody. Glad to have you today. Just a couple of housekeeping mentions. We're going to be talking for about 35 minutes, and then we're going to dedicate some time for all of you to ask your questions. So please do pop them into the chat as you think of them, or raise your hand, and we'll get to you when we can. Please also keep your mics on mute while we're talking, if you wouldn't mind, so that we don't have any background noise. We are recording the session, so that will be made available to all of you following the session. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Elie Maalouf. He has been the CEO of IHG Hotels and Resorts since July of last year, but he's been with the company for nearly 10 years, previously as the Americas CEO. So I think he splits his time a little bit between the US and the UK. Perfect for British American business. Elie has delivered exceptional results, including the delivery of record profits for the business, the launch of new brands and formats, expanded geographic reach, and he has strengthened how the business drives value for its hotel owners. He's a true internationalist. He has lived and worked in Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and the US, and he speaks 4 languages. So talk about making me feel inferior. So I'm going to kick off with a very broad-reaching question about the role of purpose. We recently launched our 6th annual CEO report on purpose, which shows that purpose has firmly become a strategic business imperative, helping businesses to build resilience in times of complexity. And that seems to be getting more and more so these years. In our survey, 62% of CEOs reported that ensuring business resilience and agility is the greatest challenge facing their businesses over the next year or so. With IHG's purpose, True Hospitality for Good, could you talk a little bit about the role that purpose plays in the organization and really how it helps to build resilience for your business? And maybe we talked a little bit last week about the engagement on purpose with your shareholders.
Hello, Mary Lee, and thank you for that very kind introduction. And thank you for all the members of the British American Business for joining us today. I know you're very busy wherever you are in the world. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today, although it's virtual. I hope we can meet in person someday soon. As you said, Mary Lee, our purpose at IHG is true hospitality for good. And every one of those words is weighted carefully. It's not generic hospitality. We think our hospitality at IHG is distinguished. That's why we call it true hospitality. And it's for a good purpose. Now, there are a range of purposes that we all think they're good purposes. And we're not embarrassed to say that one of our main purposes is delivering results for our investors. I start with that because it's usually not where purposes start when CEOs are talking about their businesses. But I'm also not ashamed to say that we are very trusted by the families, individuals that invested in ISG. And yes, if you look at our register of largest shareholders, you're going to see Fidelity and BlackRock and all the large institutions, but they are just conduits. They're agents for individuals like you, like me, young people saving for the future, old people saving for healthcare, middle-aged people saving for retirement, families saving for their children's university or for their future dreams, schools and institutions saving their endowments so they can take care of patients, so they can take care of students. And so there's a lot of trust, billions of dollars that are trusted to ISG from people whose dreams, whose hopes, whose futures rely upon our faithful stewardship of that trust. So making good on that through our hospitality business is a major responsibility. It's not just about, earning more for fat cats. Sure, there are bankers and lawyers and others that benefit, and executives when they do well and not when they don't. But ultimately, the rewards of our success as a company come to everyday, ordinary people around the world that have trusted us. And that's a responsibility we feel greatly. We also make a huge difference to our owners, who are, for the most part, individuals that own Holiday Inn Expresses and Holiday Inns and Candlewood Suites, or come together to invest in a Crowne Plaza or Staybridge Suites Hotel or Intercontinental Hotel. And that's even more than that of our shareholders. There are people for whom that's their family business. Their families will work in these hotels, and it's their entire existence around the world, whether it's in Asia or Europe or North Africa or the Middle East or Latin America or the United States and Canada, or of course the United Kingdom. Families, for the most part, individuals, private investors own these hotels, and they've trusted us to make those hotels successful for them. And it's thousands of people around the world that have trusted ISG for generations. And we need a good result for them too. And then, of course, there are communities for which the hotels are a central part of their community. I mean, so many important things happen in hotels, not just business people coming to stay or people going on vacation, but important meetings in people's lives, weddings, anniversaries, celebrations, but even some critical, sad moments, funerals, receptions. Everything in life that's important happens at a hotel, and communities cherish their hotels. And they trust us to bring hotels that are centers of their community, of their society, that not only create jobs, but create careers, create aspiration, and create a reason for people to stay in their community, not have to move somewhere else to work, and gives them a hope of staying in their community. That's why we feel like we're a force for good across many of our constituents, all of our constituents, our investors, our owners, our colleagues that work in hotels, and our communities that depend on hotels as a central fabric of their society. When we're doing our job well, and most times, if not almost always, we're doing it very well in our 6,500 plus hotels around the world over 80 years. We're a central member of that community. We're central to the lives of our owners who invest in our hotels. We're central to our shareholders who trusted us. And when it goes well, and it has been for the most part, we're a force for good in their lives.
So it clearly purpose is a North Star for the organization and affecting all of your stakeholders. We have found when we're talking with CEOs that there's a little bit of a gap between defining the purpose and then bringing that to life. How does your purpose help you navigate your decision making, and how do you bring your purpose to life in the organization?
That's where it starts to get harder. It's easy
Yeah.
to, put on paper what your purpose is, even if it's a simple slogan, and then execution is always the hard part of it. The nice thing in our business is you're very close to the business. Hotels are living, breathing, creatures. They're living, breathing organisms in our community. And 1 million people on average stay at a nice hotel every night of the year. 1 million around the world every night. And we hear from them, and we hear from their owners, and we hear from their communities. And so it's not hard to stay close to the business. The business doesn't let you stay away from it. People feel very emotionally about their hotel brands, about their hotel stays, about their experiences. When it goes well, they let you know. And in the rare times where it doesn't, they let you know too.
Yeah.
So you're very close to the business. And you can pretty well measure if you're meeting the expectations, that trust that your communities, your employees, your owners have placed in you. You get feedback very openly and regularly. It's not a closed loop. You see, we're virtually 100% asset light, which means we don't own any of the hotels. They're either managed or franchised, mostly franchised around the world. So third parties, mostly individual investors, own these hotels. And I personally spend a lot of time with many of these ownership groups. Many of our people spend a lot of time with them because they're the ones that own and operate these properties. And so you're getting constant feedback from them. Are we meeting their expectations? Are we meeting the guest expectations? And they're members of their communities. And the question many times is, are we meeting the community's expectations? So executing on those expectations is very hard. It's a very competitive industry. People's expectations for their travel experience, for their return on investment on investing in a hotel, communities' expectations on how a hotel can transform their community are very high. Their willingness and ability to give us that feedback is also very high. We're in constant dialogue on how that's happening, and we measure it very carefully. We measure our guest satisfaction. We measure our owner satisfaction. If they're pleased with us, they return and do more hotels with us. 80% of our new transactions every year are with existing owners. And we measure and we track our impact in our communities very closely. And of course, our shareholders let us know every day how they feel about our company and its performance. So whether we're executing our purpose for guests, for owners, for colleagues, for communities, and for investors is a constant feedback loop, and we are quite aware of it. We work hard at it every day.
So one of the questions I want to ask you about is talent. With that many properties and that many investors and that many hotels and markets, the connection to talent between purpose and talent is really important. And we see all the reports and data about how difficult it is to attract and retain employees at this point in time. Our report found that CEOs agree that purpose can empower employees, but only 24% think that their frontline employees have fully embraced the purpose of the organization. You have a staggering 375,000 employees. That's my last data point, across, as you said, 6,400 properties globally. How do you help your employees at every level embrace true hospitality for good? And are there any specific examples that you might be able to share on that front?
It's even harder, Mary Lee, because most of those 375,000 employees aren't actually directly IHG employees.
Right.
Most of them are employees of franchised hotels where they're wearing the uniform of IHG. Holiday Inn Express, Kimpton Hotels and Resorts and Restaurants, Intercontinental, Staybridge Suites. But they are not employees of IHG. They're employees of the ownership group. And yet the customer doesn't know that. And they expect the same experience and the same delivery and the same purpose and the same passion that we bring in our own managed hotels. And so it's even harder, but I think we do a good job at it. I think it comes through first the tone at the top of what our purpose is and how it flows through every one of our decisions about what brands we have and how they make an impact in their communities, decisions about how we hire in a broad, diverse, inclusive way, decisions about who we do business with and the reputation that we maintain. The business about the standard that we set in the community for quality, for customer service, and for the quality of our properties. And when I think employees see not just a purpose, but they see you acting consistently with those. And look, it's not easy. We're not perfect. It's our aspiration to act consistently with our purpose. We're flawed individuals and human beings like everybody else is. And I know it's a challenge for most organizations. But the more you act consistently with your purpose, if we believe that high quality hotels enhance our reputation and enhance the environment and work environment of our colleagues, then if we act upon it, then they believe us. If we believe that having a diverse and inclusive workforce, look, we're in 100 countries plus. And by the way, within those 100 countries, it's probably multiples of cultures within those countries, right? I mean, India is not a country, it's a continent. China is not just one country, it's a continent with multiple cultures. The US is multiple cultures within a country. And so yes, we're 100 countries, probably 250 cultures and even more languages. But if we say that inclusivity and meritocracy is truly a value that we have, and then we act upon it, and people see a diverse workforce and a diverse leadership team and an inclusive mindset and opportunity, then that's different than just talking about it. I think we do act, in accordance with the values that we set forward. And I think so. First, what's important is to act upon it, and then you can start to see examples of your colleagues actually behaving that way. We operate, of course, our biggest operations is the United States, and this summer you had 2 major storms come through the South, and one of our responsibilities in society when there are natural disasters, 1 or 2 things happens to hotels. They're either the victim of a natural disaster and they're destroyed or they're closed, or they become the refuge during the natural disaster. So they're either closed and destroyed, or we're full and busy with people that are escaping sometimes near death experiences. And I got this letter, actually this email. Some people still write letters though, to be fair. And it's lovely when you get them, actual handwritten notes. But this was an email from a woman in North Carolina, where they had devastating floods that killed hundreds of people. And they were victims of Hurricane Helene, and they escaped from North Carolina to the suburbs of Georgia. And they stopped in Dawsonville, Georgia, where they knew that there was a Holiday Inn Express. And they were bringing with them their 90-plus-year-old, elderly relative who suffers from Alzheimer's and was in, pretty tired state. But they called ahead and they spoke to Brandy, who worked in our Holiday Inn Express, and explained the situation, that their father was exhausted, confused, unable to walk. So when they reached the hotel, Brandy was waiting at the door. She had a wheelchair for the father, and the little things that really embody the culture. This woman remembered that Brandy rolled over the carpet so that the wheelchair could move smoothly across, and got them to a handicap accessible room, and took care of them. And for them, it was sort of a saving grace. Shelter from the storm, as we say at ISG. And so when I see that, when I read that our values and our purpose is translating through even to a franchise employee who isn't a direct employee of ISG, works for a family business in a small town of Dawsonville, Georgia, but has taken on our values and our purpose and is delivering that true hospitality for good at a time of difficulty, for no extra benefit to them other than the pride of what they do. Now, look, we're not perfect. Of 1 million people that stay with us every night, even if we're 99.9% right, we still get it wrong for 1,000 people. And I probably hear from 500 of those every night. but I think we get it mostly right.
I think that's an amazing story, particularly as you say, they're not your employees. They are connected to you through their properties, but truly amazing. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you is how do you instill that purpose across so many disparate audiences, if you will? And one of the things that I think IHG is doing a particularly good job is on sustainability. And the link between sustainability and purpose is apparent when you go on your website in so many different ways, including supporting the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. I've seen you talking about that earlier this year. And one of the ways that stood out to me was your Journey to the Tomorrow plan. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Yes, I'm glad you bring that up, Elie. Journey to Tomorrow, or as we abbreviate it, of course, we always have to abbreviate everything, JTT, is really at the center of our True Hospitality for Good. Is how do we take True Hospitality for Good into action, in the communities, and and we have three major areas that we focus on: people, communities, and planet. You raise the planet, and there we have very clear targets around sustainability, which is reducing energy consumption. Literally, we have a target to reduce it by 46% in total by 2030. This is very hard. Reducing energy consumption and carbon footprint. Every company's working hard on it. It just gets harder. You need new technologies, you need government collaboration, you need the grid to decarbonize, but we're making a very significant impact at IHG. I'm very proud of the hard work we do. I'd say the more passionate, emotional aspects of our JTT are around people and communities. We strive and we maintain very high standards for achieving a diverse and inclusive culture. Look, we're by DNA, by definition, a very multicultural company. Yes, our biggest business in the US, and many of our brands bring their heritage back to the US, like Holiday and Holiday Express, but Intercontinental, Six Senses are global brands. And we're the largest foreign, international company in China. We're the largest international company in the Middle East. We've been in, of course, we're listed in the UK. We're multicultural. I mean, even myself, as I say, I'm, more American than my name, but less American than my accent. And so we're multicultural, inclusive by design, by DNA, and we strive to welcome people from all backgrounds, all identities. I don't think we could succeed and strive and be relevant to all these countries where we do business and to all the guests profiles in the world that we welcome to hotels if our own leadership and workforce weren't as broad, diverse, and inclusive. And we strive to do that. Then I'd say for our communities, you have very specific goals to make a difference in the lives of 30 million people between now and 2030. One of the key and recent initiatives was entering into a partnership with Action Against Hunger that seeks to work on the malnourishment, improve the malnourishment state of children around the world, of the highly malnourished children around the world. And we think that Action Against Hunger, working against hunger, is a global cause, a common cause. People can differ on so many causes around the world, have different views. Everybody unites when it comes to taking action against hunger, especially when it comes down to children. Mm. I think that's a universal cause that can unite all of our people, all of our demographics, all of our nationalities around the world. And that's the most recent activity that we have. So we can't do everything. I mean, we obviously are a large business, but not infinitely resourced and large. And we've picked sort of the areas where we think we can make the most impact and we can rally the most effort around our colleagues. And we've picked sort of sustainability around carbon, water, and food waste. And we've picked and energy, of course. And we've picked making an impact to our colleagues through a diverse and inclusive culture. And we picked making a difference in our communities by improving the lives of 30 million people. And this year, really focusing on hunger and reducing that around the world.
So one of the questions that we always get on these webcasts is, how do you measure the effect that purpose has on the business? And you've been talking about some amazing initiatives. And having worked in the international sphere myself, I'm always curious as to how you get everybody to kind of sing the same hymn. How do you get everybody to kind of coalesce behind the same values, behind the same purpose, behind all these different programs that you're talking about? Is part of that showing them the cause and effect? So showing them, the right thing to do is in measuring that, or how do you get everybody aligned on doing all of these things similarly?
It's not easy, first of all.
Right.
We're a very busy organization. We don't run with a lot of slack. Uh, there are two places that never close in the world: institutions, hospitals, and hotels. Every other structure or business in the world closes at some point, either between midnight and 4 a.m. Even most airports close for a period of time. All restaurants and retail shops close at some point, somewhere, some day of the year. Hospitals and hotels never close. And hospitals may close most of their wards, but the emergency room is always open, right? But hotels never close at all. I mean, we're always on, always open. And so our people are constantly working all the time. And even if you're not working on property, which many of our people don't, including myself, because the hotels are always open, you're always in the flow of work. So we have to pick activities and messages and engagements that they can relate to. And where we can show that we're making a difference. And we can show that we're making a difference on energy reduction, on food waste. Because, by the way, reducing energy consumption has a payback to our hotel owners,
Right.
not just to the environment in general, not just to society in general, but reducing energy consumption benefits the hotel itself at the right payback. And so I'm not embarrassed to say that we don't do everything that reduces energy consumption. If you need to spend $10 million to reduce only a few watts of energy consumption, that's not something we're going to recommend a hotel does. If you can, however, install, sensing thermostats that adjust the temperature automatically and reduce energy consumption for a few $100s a room, that's something we are going to recommend. It's got a high payback. So, and we're going to steer you to the right vendors and to the right form of procuring it. Just some small examples, but to illustrate the fact that we find things that can get buy-in, because we know that if you're pushing a rock uphill, it eventually is going to roll over you. It's going to roll over you. You're going to get tired of pushing, and the rock will roll over you. So, we know that our colleagues, because they're in hospitality, they're passionate about helping people in communities, whether it's disaster relief or hospitality training, of taking care of people, improving the lives of people. We know that hospitality brings people in that are passionate about feeding, about hunger, about helping their society. So, yes, we are strategic in picking activities, objectives that we think we can rally our people around, and that are aligned with the purpose of a hotel and a community to begin with. I would add to that we maintain a strong senior level engagement, the tone at the top, the activities that we participate in, the things that I talk about, the recognition that we give. I think that when they see it flowing from our leadership, then, and by the way, a part of our long-term compensation at the senior executive team is tied to some of these objectives that I just talked to, in sustainability, in communities, and with people. And so there's an alignment. It's never perfect, especially when you get turnover of people that you do in hospitality. But if you continue the same consistency of picking activities, objectives that are aligned with what your business actually does, we're not going to do something in the cloud or something that's so technologically focused that is outside of our natural DNA, but things that are aligned with your business, and you align senior management with it, you have a higher chance of getting people to follow you.
When you think about, we've been talking a lot about purpose and how it affects or how it engages all your different stakeholders. How does it reflect on the brand, or the brands, I should say, your portfolio of brands?
We have a portfolio of 19 brands. They serve many different purposes, from entry-level, everyday, affordable travel, all the way to uber luxury for those who are extremely fortunate or want to celebrate an extremely, unique experience. Each of our brands, has a distinct personality, and they're all powered by our master brand, which is IHG Hotels and Resorts. And if we're executing on our values and our purpose, I think they're all infused with that purpose. Each of them has a reputation on its own that goes back decades. I mean, Holiday Inn was the brand in the United States that welcomed everyday travelers at inception. It means travel. It means everyday travel for ordinary people forever. I mean, I remember hearing Colin Powell speak, the late general, former Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, an icon in American leadership and government and society, actually, say that when his family, back in the days where there was discrimination, legal discrimination, unfortunately, in the United States, when his family would first travel, Holiday Inn was one of the few hotel chains that would welcome everybody and anybody.
Wow. And
when somebody of that stature comes to one of our events, and actually it's in his book, one of his books, that says something about us, right? It says something about our brands, that they come with a heritage of trust in their communities. They come with a responsibility to maintain that trust. And then that's wrapped by IHG Hotels and Resorts, where we at a corporate level follow through. But it's something we have to continue to maintain. Now, if your question is, can I prove that it makes a financial difference to the company? I think it's more, we believe that we are first better for it. And we wouldn't want to know what the absence of that trust would be like, because you'd have to be in the negative state to prove that it makes a difference, and we don't believe it. So, but more so, I don't think that we would need to prove a financial advantage to do what we're doing. Like, we pick things that we think are fundamentally right to do and feasible for us and affordable for us to do. We're not, going to save the world from every ill. But if we don't believe that it all has to stand the test of being to our commercial advantage, as long as it's something we feel like we can be successful doing. We think that having an inclusive, diverse culture is fundamentally the right thing to do. We believe that being a force for good in our community is fundamentally the right thing to do. We believe it advances our commercial objectives. I don't think we can prove it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to prove it.
Right. You're in the long game. I'm just going to ask people, if you have any questions, please do put them in chat. We'll carry on talking, but just wanted to make that invitation there as well. I'd like to hear a little bit about how the different hotel properties and the employees between the different hotel properties, do they all understand what the purpose is across the IHG brand? Am I reading that right?
We hope so. We hire with it, we train it, but look, there's a lot of turnover in frontline hotel business, and it's getting a bit better, but over the last 4 years, there's a lot of turnover. You know what the labor markets were like, especially in Europe and in North America. We were understaffed in many cases. There's a lot of turnover, so we have to keep doing it. We have to keep training people. But as long as our training is going on, our tone at the top is the same, our brand purpose is the same, we're repeating it to everybody regularly, we believe we get a very high adoption, and we measure our guest satisfaction, we measure how our customers are feeling about us to make sure that it's coming through. We spend a lot of time with our owners to make sure they live our values too. But yeah, it's something you have to constantly sustain, because the membership of the IHG family of employees, of owners, of leaders is not constant. It's a very fluid membership.
So, given the tourism business is exactly that, fluid and changes rapidly, what's your forecast or prognosis for the next 12 to 18 months? I mean, obviously, travel is picking up. There's more demands on travel, more demands not just on the accommodation business, but also on the travel business. The airlines, everybody's consolidating or trying to do different things. What do you see the way forward for IHG?
I mean, look, we're blessed to be in an industry that has strong tailwinds, structural tailwinds that we didn't create. We're capitalizing on, but we didn't create them, which is the growth of the middle class globally and the growth of economies, growth of GDP basically globally. And as long as those two continue, a little more one year, a little less another, a little more in parts of the world, a little less in others. But as long as those continue, travel grows. Travel is a natural, genetic, in unavoidable, sort of irrepressible behavior of growth of middle class and growth of economic well-being. As soon as people cross over a certain stage of economic well-being where they've taken care of the essentials, shelter, healthcare, subsistence, then they start want to explore and travel, whether for profit or for pleasure. It's just been happening since the beginning of mankind, and it just continues to grow. I don't have a forecast for the next 12 to 18 months. I can tell you over the next 5 years and 10 years, it's going to continue to be larger because the middle class around the world is going to grow by over 1 billion. Even the population of the world doesn't grow by 1 billion. The middle class is going to grow by 1 billion, as it did over the last 10 years. And when they cross over that, they're going to travel. And then, of course, the fortunate upper classes continue to expand as people move up the ladder, and they want different experiences. So, and then as travel networks grow, and I mean mostly airline networks grow around the world. Some airlines aren't growing, but there are vast aircraft orders around the world, the largest being sort of east, whether it's the Gulf carriers. The two largest aircraft carrier orders in the world are in India, Air India and Air Indigo Air, and then Air Asia, Malaysia. They're building low-cost networks around the world, around Asia. That's going to rapidly, increase travel. So the convergence of growing travel networks and air capacity and growing middle class and GDP just means there's going to be more travel, and not a guarantee for ISG, but an opportunity which we feel we're well positioned to capitalize on. It's very competitive. It's not easy. We got to keep earning our right to take care of customers and earn their trust and that of hotel investors and hotel developers. But I'm confident we will.
Do you think the traveler understands the purpose behind IHG? Do they know about true hospitality for good?
Probably not enough. Probably not enough. I mean, travelers, I'd say our corporate travelers, maybe more so. 50% of our business is corporate travel. We meet B2B with them. Even I meet with some of our large corporate customers, but our corporate relationship people, our corporate salespeople, our general managers, our leaders are meeting with our corporate travelers a lot, and they're interested in doing business with businesses that have a purpose, that have sustainability plans, very specific ones that are equally aligned on inclusion, that are good forces in their communities. And by the way, they want very good rates too, and the best hotel rooms and the upgrades and the points and all those things. Believe me, nobody gives you a break on that. And they deserve it, But they want to align themselves with travel partners that have equal and shared values. So I'd say our corporate travelers know more about true hospitality for good and our JTT, Journey for Tomorrow plan. Individual leisure travelers are probably much more into picking the property and the location and what the benefits are. But if they're a frequent traveler and they're also corporate travelers from time to time, I think they're learning more about it. We can only deepen that knowledge and that partnership with them.
Yeah. Oh, so thinking about your partnerships, you have so many partners. This is a question from the chat, from toiletries to airlines to cars, rental companies, food. How do you vet these vendors or these partners? And is there expectation around their own commitment to? Do you have an expectation around their own commitment to purpose, to sustainability, to all the things that you've just been talking about?
Yes, I mean, first we like to do business with partners that have equally high quality reputations as ours that we believe will, project positively on us. I mean, who you keep as friends sometimes defines you, right?
Yes.
Some things more than others, but um, but this is a very visible industry. The owners we do business with are known in their communities. They tend to be community leaders, people that are respected in the community. They built this shopping center and this office building, and this road is named after them, and they also own these hotels. Just to give you an example, that's not an unusual circumstances, even in small towns, especially in small towns. Um, the marketing partnerships that we have, whether it's the U.S. Tennis Open or our co-brand partners that we just renewed with Chase, JP Morgan Chase and MasterCard, are companies with high reputations around the world that are recognized and share our same values. Even our amenity partners are partners that we think elevate our brand. Some of their sustainability programs are going to be different than ours. Some of their people programs are going to be different. We totally expect and understand that. But are they in general aligned with our direction? Now, I think there's a baseline, which there are requirements for responsible procurement, where you're buying your thing, ethical procurement, responsible procurement, that you're not using, illegal labor, child labor, that you're not buying certain products that we would not want into our supply chain. So we have clearly baseline requirements that we have to vet, and that takes a lot of work. But beyond the baseline requirements, we strive to do business with partners who also are aligned with our aspirational values.
Makes total sense. How do you personally spend your time to help the franchisees, the hotel owners understand and embrace the purpose?
Now, I spend a lot of time with owners and franchisees. It's not 30% of my time talking about our values and our purpose.
Right.
If I needed to spend 30% of my time, then we have a bigger issue.
Right.
But I spend a lot of time with owners, and I try to make sure that's always part of the conversation. So in large formats, 3 weeks ago, we had our biannual conference of limited service, what we call mainstream owners in the Americas. That was 5,500 people. So our biggest the biggest event at IG that we ever hold happens every 2 years. And we bring all of our America's owners that are in limited service, Holiday Inn, Holiday Express, David Suites, Candlewood Suites, Atwell, Avid, and the general managers, the owners. I mean, it's an incredibly inspiring, motivating event. And, I'm up there on stage for 25, 30 minutes, maybe on a panel with somebody asking me questions, going through our business. But there's a key part of it where we're talking about us being a force for good in our communities and how we're doing it through them, because they are projecting us in their communities. So we try to make sure that we bring it in all of our major conversations. On the other hand, I was having dinner with 5 or 6 owners in the United States in Washington, D.C. This last Thursday. And we had an hour and a half session over dinner. And I made sure that we got onto that topic among other topics that we talked to: the industry, competition, economics, the projections, how we see the world, and geopolitics, whatever, everything. And then, why do I believe we're a force for good? That theme that we're a force for good in communities and how we do it together with them is one I always try to come to.
I'm curious, it seems like it's so embedded now in the organization and threaded through so many of the programs that you have running. How long has the purpose been part of IHG? How long have you had a purpose stated like that?
I mean, I think IHG's always been a high quality, high reputation, very responsible business. Even before, I've only been with the company 10 years, only because I'm surrounded by people that have been here sometimes decades. And a company that has a history goes back 80 years, just as a hotel company. But I think ever since I joined, that was there. We distilled it initially into true hospitality. Maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And then we extended it as true hospitality for good, which is an evolution, not a transformation. 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a process. It's been an evolution.
Was there a
Constant.
was there a pivotal point in time that brought in the good? Was there something that happened in the business you thought we really need to make this a little bit more specific?
I think there was a confluence of of a rise of, I'd say, awareness and preference among employees, customers, owners, communities where reputation and how you do business and your impact started to become more, not just something they were curious about, but we sensed it was something they were going to start deciding with.
Right.
Because that employees, customers, communities, that being more proactive about what we're doing. Sometimes it was things we were doing we just weren't communicating enough about. And sometimes there's things we need to do more about, which was on sustainability. But that it was starting to become part of what we call the license to do business.
Right.
License to do business in a broad way. It's not a physical piece of paper, but in a broad way. And so we needed to define, and then of course you see, because we're a very large company, people starting to, this department going off and doing this, and this leader going off and doing that, all well-intentioned, but probably not the same impact if we didn't bring it under some umbrella philosophy. And so it was starting to happen organically in the company, and I think we needed to say, okay, what is our strategy on it? What's our philosophy around it? And some of our great leaders really brought this and coalesced it into True Hospitality and True Hospitality for Good, which spawned Journey to Tomorrow, and I think it's going to keep evolving.
We have another question from the audience. Maybe Paul Murphy would like to speak to the question. I can see him in a little thumbnail visual there.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I've been put on the spot here, I see. So I've just noticed that, yeah, I love a lot of your hotels, by the way. But I have noticed just quite recently, there has been kind of an increase in, it's almost like a challenge against the health and fitness industry. I noticed a number of the gyms and these kind of active memberships seem to be happening at various hotels where you've got like a hotel group, but they actually have that kind of daily membership coming in. So I didn't know if that was the hotels just challenging the fitness industry in general. And also, just I had a second question there, just to get your sort of take on maybe the automation, robotics side of things like AI and robotics and cleaning, and how this might affect your jobs in the future or culture within the industry if you can automate things.
Yes, very different questions.
Sorry about that.
Let's say no, they're all both important. Look, on fitness, I mean, there are instances where hotel gyms also open up to membership. It's not a lot because we try to keep the hotel fitness area exclusive for hotel guests and that they can have the capacity there. There are some hotels that overbuild their fitness facilities to sell memberships, and we're okay with it as long as there's enough capacity for hotel guests first. It's not a very big part of the industry because you tend to need to overbuild your hotel fitness capacity, which is very expensive, and count, and you have to figure that the revenue you're going to get from gym memberships exceeds the revenue you're going to get from meeting space or restaurant space or more hotel rooms. That equation pencils and sometimes doesn't pencil. It'll happen a few times. It's probably not going to be a major trend in my view, but you know what? I've been wrong before. I could be wrong this time too. I like to go to the gym every time I'm traveling or even every day, wherever I am. I hope it's not too busy where I can't get in. On your automation, it's clearly something that's evolving. There's going to be, and there is already, a lot of application for automation and technology. It's going to be less applicable to, I'd say, housekeeping and room cleaning. There's just, unfortunately, and I'd say unfortunately, those tasks are so detailed, so inconsistent, so hard to automate and do precisely to the very exacting standards of our customer that look, if somebody can come up with an automated solution for that, I think they will, an affordable one, they will make a big difference. It's not on the horizon. However, there are many other things that can make a difference. There's so many back office tasks that we're automating, whether it's in accounting or HR, whether it's in check-in or checkout, where we can not necessarily reduce employment, but free up the time of people to take care of the things that only people can take care of. And, you know, guests always like to still talk to somebody about certain issues. They will work on chat for many things, and we're able to route many things to chat, live chat or automated chat. But in some cases, they just want to go to the front desk and talk to somebody. And that's not just, you know, more mature senior people, but even some younger generations. And so we're looking more to free up people's capacity and take care of people's needs and automate whatever we can. It's going to continue to evolve.
Thank you.
So with all the hotels that are the properties that you have, how lean or how large is the corporate staff? Just trying to get an understanding of the balance between everybody that's doing everything in all of the markets, but then you have to have people back at the home base kind of supporting.
Yeah. I mean, how many people are in our corporate home bases? Okay, we have around what we call 6,000 corporate employees, of which, however, more than 3,000, while they're defined as corporate, they work in our contact centers. So they're basically guest reservation centers, problem resolution centers, in what you would consider classic corporate centers. It's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 around the world. So a very small proportion of the 375,000 people that, you know, you see at the very top line working in hotels. And therefore, it's a very flat organization that way.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it is, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, you're not that far from the business. You're not many layers away from the business. It's not hundreds of thousands of corporate employees to very few people on the shop floor. It's actually the opposite.
Wow. Well, a success story for sure. I love hearing about how the purpose is embraced by so many of your stakeholders across all of the different levels and different functions. So it's fantastic to hear. Great. Big applause. I'm going to close there because we don't have any other questions. This has been a fantastic conversation. Elie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody who's joined us for today as well. It's just been a great honor speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Well, Marilee, thank you very much. It's been a privilege to join you and the British American group. And I think that, you know, we are blessed with a great business. I'm blessed with great colleagues. They make a difference. We couldn't do it without them. I hope this has been useful to everybody, and I look forward to meeting some of you in person in the near future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.